She whispered that I was sweet but not her level, tried quietly adding herself to my lease, and told everyone we ended things mutually. Until she crashed my company event and learned about the $15 million I never mentioned. I moved to Seattle on a Wednesday. Not because of some romantic impulse or dramatic life pivot, just because my company finally approved the relocation package for the back-end project I'd been quietly shepherding for 2 years. I didn't announce anything online. I didn't even tell my extended family. I just packed 2 suitcases, forwarded my mail, and left Denver behind like a room I wouldn't need anymore. That check, had cleared that same morning. $15 million. An acquisition bonus and the last installment of my equity. Quiet, anticlimactic numbers on a screen. No champagne. No screenshots. I sat in my half-empty apartment, stared at the phone for a long minute, and then turned it face down like it had interrupted me. I didn't celebrate. I didn't know how. I met Lena 2 weeks later. Not on an app. In person, at a coffee shop near South Lake Union that I picked because they had reliable Wi-Fi and tables with outlets that weren't constantly hogged by startup founders pitching their reflections in the window. She was behind me in line. Tall, a little sharper around the eyes than people usually are that early in the morning. Her voice was soft but fast, the kind of cadence that made you lean forward to catch up. She complimented my watch, a cheap black Casio that somehow made her expression flicker, like she was recalculating something. I didn't think much of it then. We ended up sharing a table because it was packed, and Seattle's politeness rule demanded you ask before sitting alone at a four-top. She introduced herself. Marketing. UX adjacent, whatever that meant. New to the neighborhood, too. We traded the usual expat in a tech city awkwardness. She laughed easily. She asked good questions. She didn't overshare. And she had that particular way of looking at you like she wasn't evaluating you, just noting you. I like that. When she asked if I wanted to continue the conversation sometime, I said yes without hesitation. I told myself I wasn't dating. New city, new work rhythms, too much money too suddenly. It felt like a bad moment to entangle my life with someone else's. But Lena seemed low stakes, grounded. Someone I could just get to know without constructing a new identity around. That was mistake number 1, I guess. Thinking intentions were something 2 people set together. Our first actual date was a Tuesday evening. She picked the place, a dim, plant-heavy wine bar in Capitol Hill that looked curated specifically for people who wanted to be overheard discussing books they'd never read. But she was warm, quick, engaged. She leaned in when I talked. She laughed in ways that felt unrehearsed. She ordered a bottle I didn't know and said, "Let's just try it. If it's bad, that's a sign we're not meant to date." It felt spontaneous instead of performative. I remember thinking, maybe this is what normal looks like. A small detail, though, the first red flag, even if I didn't recognize it. When the bill came, she didn't reach for it. Not unusual, but she also didn't thank me. Instead, she smiled in this curious, unreadable way and said, "You seem like someone who has things handled." It wasn't flirtatious. It wasn't accusing. It was observational, like she was marking something in a column I couldn't see. I brushed past it, told myself I was overthinking. The second flag arrived maybe a week later. We were at my apartment, still sparsely furnished, because I kept telling myself I'd buy furniture once I figured out what my life here was supposed to look like. She walked around like she was on a home tour, adjusting herself into my space without asking. She picked up a book from the coffee table and said, "You know, you read like someone who wants to be impressive but chooses things that look humble." I asked what that meant. She shrugged, smiling like she knew something she wasn't going to share. Just an observation. Observation. Assessment. The same pattern. At the time, I convinced myself she was just perceptive. Maybe too perceptive. Maybe that was why being around her made me feel seen and misread at the same time. Still, we settled into something. Sunday brunches, late-night conversations, her texting me long, winding thoughts about movies she half-watched. She had a way of entwining herself into your routines without ever asking for permission. She'd send, "Let me know when you're home," texts. She'd show up with pastries just because I was in the area, despite living 25 minutes away. She wasn't clingy. She wasn't distant. She was calibrating, maybe. The third red flag slipped by me completely, and in hindsight it seems stupid. We were lying in bed, her head on my chest, soft blue streetlight pooling through the blinds. She traced small circles on my arm and whispered, You're sweet, but not my level. Dating down is exhausting. I thought she was joking. I half laughed, unsure if I was supposed to be offended or amused. She didn't laugh. She kissed my neck lightly, almost to soften the words, and added, "But it's okay. I like a challenge. Prove me wrong." I remember staring at the ceiling after she fell asleep, confused. Was it a kink? A joke? Some backhanded flirtation that didn't translate? My brain shoved it aside. I told myself she was just strange, and strange could be interesting. But that line, "not my level," it hung in the air like a faint smell of something burning that you ignore because you don't want to deal with the implication. I didn't know yet what she meant. I didn't know that she thought she'd pegged me, that she thought she'd figured out exactly who I was, where I came from, and most importantly, where she believed I couldn't possibly go. I didn't know she was building a narrative, a hierarchy, a script with only one possible ending. I didn't know she'd tell people later that the breakup had been mutual, or that she'd leave out everything that actually happened. But that comes later. This is just the beginning. Lena had a talent for turning small moments into subtle power plays. Not in the loud, obvious way people talk about online. No yelling, no ultimatums. It was quieter, like she wanted to be the narrator of my life instead of a character in it. We were at a grocery store once, QFC on Broadway, the one that always smells faintly like cinnamon and bleach. I'd put a jar of cheap pasta sauce in the cart, something I'd eaten through grad school, something comforting. She looked at it and said, lightly, "Oh, you still buy the student stuff." Not cruel, not mocking, just a tone, curious, faintly amused, as if she'd discovered a quirk that lowered my value by an inch. I switched the jar out for something triple the price without thinking. She didn't ask me to. She didn't have to. And I hated that I noticed myself doing it. Another time, she asked about my job. Not the details, she never asked about the work. She asked about the title, the salary, the trajectory. I gave her the vaguest version possible. Senior backend engineer. Platform architecture. It's fine. She pressed a little. But like, where does that put you? Are you mid-level? Senior? Technical lead? I'm just trying to get a sense of your direction. Direction. Trajectory. Level. I kept the equity money out of the conversation. Not because I was hiding it, just because it felt irrelevant. And because the way she asked made my stomach tighten in a way I couldn't explain. Like she wanted a number she could hand to someone else later. People always assume it's easy to talk about money when you have it. That's wrong. It gets harder. When she asked how much my rent was, I gave a number lower than the real one. When she asked if I had savings, I said enough. When she asked what my relocation package included, I shrugged it off. Something in me hesitated around her, and I didn't know why. But the turning point, the moment I should have walked away, happened on a rainy Thursday when she invited me to dinner with her friends. I didn't know she'd given them a backstory about me. We were sitting in a small restaurant in Belltown, exposed brick, Edison bulbs, the kind of place where the cheapest thing is $37 and somehow worth it. Her friends were friendly enough, though the conversation leaned performative, the way groups can be when they're used to a hierarchy. The first strange comment came from her friend Mason, halfway into a cocktail. "So you're the guy Lena's helping level up, huh?" He said it with a grin, as if he expected me to laugh. I didn't. I glanced at Lena. She didn't look embarrassed or surprised. She just sipped her wine with this serene little smile. Later, another friend, Julia, said, "She keeps saying your potential. She loves a project." And that's when something cold slid down my spine. A project. Potential. Leveling up. Dating down. The language repeated. A pattern I hadn't connected yet. A story I didn't write. I asked Lena about it in the car afterward. "What exactly did you tell them?" She didn't answer immediately. She adjusted the rearview mirror, even though she wasn't the one driving. Finally, she said, "Nothing bad. Just that you're sweet, humble, still figuring things out. I told you I've been working in my field for 10 years. Yes, but that's not ambition. Ambition is different." I didn't know what she meant, and I didn't like asking. She reached over, touched my arm softly. "I just want you to grow. Isn't that what partners do for each other?" Partners. Not boyfriend-girlfriend. Partners. The word people use when they're trying to imply equality while quietly arranging the pieces so one stands higher. Driving home, I felt something I couldn't name. Not anger. Not fear. A kind of distance opening up. A split between how she saw me and who I knew I was. And still, I stayed. Why? Because she wasn't cruel. Because nothing she said was loud or obvious. Because it's hard to admit someone sees a version of you that you don't recognize, and harder to confront why they chose that version. I told myself she was stressed. I told myself I was being sensitive. I told myself the relationship was new and needed time to settle. What I didn't tell myself, what I refused to even consider, was that she was slowly building a narrative around me. One where she was the accomplished one, the one dating down, the one elevating a man who didn't know his own worth. And she assumed I'd play along. She assumed I'd try to prove her wrong, to rise to her level, to chase validation she thought she was withholding like a reward. But she didn't know me. Not really. Because the truth, the financial truth, was sitting quietly in an account, untouched, unmentioned. And 3 weeks later, that truth would collide with her story in a way she didn't expect. A way she couldn't spin. A way that would expose everything. Update 1. I wish I could say the breakup was one moment, a single explosion, one sentence, one revelation. It wasn't. It was a slow-motion collapse that only looked sudden from the outside. It started with a missing package. A small thing, right? But small things expose big truths. I'd ordered a replacement webcam, a high-end one, because my old one was glitching during client calls. The delivery notification came while I was still at work. When I got home, the box was opened, the camera sitting on my coffee table next to a half-finished can of sparkling water that wasn't mine. Lena was in the kitchen, barefoot, scrolling on her phone. "Hey," she said casually, as if she lived there. "Did you open my package?" She didn't look up. I figured it was something you needed help choosing. Tech stuff isn't really your thing. A strange thing to say to someone who built platform infrastructure for a living. Not that she ever asked what my work actually involved. "Why would you open it?" She shrugged. "Because we're partners. You don't need to be so protective." Protective? Of my mail? In my apartment. When she wasn't invited over. I didn't argue. I just placed the webcam aside and checked my account for the delivery receipt. That's when I saw it. My Amazon account had been logged into from her iPad earlier that day, and 5 items had been ordered. Not shipped yet, but placed. Designer makeup, a $400 hair tool, a pair of limited edition sneakers for her brother, a $280 candle bundle, a book about dating men with emotional immaturity. Total, $1,190. I called out from the living room. "Lena, did you buy things on my account?" She appeared in the doorway, annoyed. "Can we not make this a thing? I'll pay you back." "You didn't ask." "Because you always pay. You don't care about money." The casual certainty in her voice made my stomach turn. She wasn't stealing. She genuinely believed she had access, like she'd earned it by dating down. I opened my mouth to say something calm, I think, but she cut me off. "Why are you acting brand new? You know I like quality things. And you know you're not. You know, they're yet financially. Shouldn't you want to keep up?" That word again, level. Wielded like a ruler, she measured me with. "I never said you could use my accounts." She rolled her eyes. "Okay, then just say you're insecure." Jesus. And then, the fatal line. Spoken with a soft, pitying tone. "I'm trying to elevate you. Why fight me?" I sat down, because standing suddenly felt shaky. "I think you need to leave." She froze, like genuinely stunned, as if the concept had never occurred to her. "You're serious?" "Yes." "Because of a few orders?" "Are you? Wow. I thought you were mature." But underneath her irritation, I saw it. The panic of losing control of a story she thought she was authoring. She grabbed her bag, muttering under her breath. Before she left, she turned to me and said, "You know what? Fine. Do whatever. But don't act like this was some power move. This is mutual. We're just not aligned. And honestly, you'll understand later, dating down is exhausting." Then the door shut. And for the first time, I didn't feel insulted. I felt relieved. Because something clicked. Her comments, her projections, the way she talked about potential, the way her friends framed me as some renovation project she'd taken on. She genuinely believed she was above me. Because I kept my money private. Because I didn't posture. Because I wore a $25 Casio and lived simply while figuring myself out in a new city. She thought restraint was evidence of lack. She thought quiet meant small. She thought she was building me. She had no idea who she was talking to. 2 days later, the real confrontation happened. I went to the leasing office to drop off some paperwork, and the building manager asked, "Oh, by the way, will your girlfriend be added to the lease after all?" She came by to inquire. I stood there, blinking. She what? She filled out a preliminary form. Said you'd talk to us. My signature box was empty. Her handwriting was on 3 lines. My legal first name, misspelled. My move-in date, wrong. My income, guessed, and guessed low. My jaw locked. I asked the manager politely to send me a scanned copy for my records. Then I walked upstairs, closed my door, and sat down with a sensation I hadn't felt since I was 12, and someone tried to forge my mother's signature on a field trip form. Not fear. Not anger. Clarity. Cold, clean clarity. I texted Lena. Why did you submit paperwork to be added to my lease without asking me? No answer for 10 minutes. Then, Lena, you're overreacting. It was just an inquiry. Me. Then why did you fill out forms? Lena, because I assumed we were moving forward. Stop being dramatic. I didn't reply. Instead, I saved the PDF. Then screenshots. Then the Amazon receipts. Then every text where she talked about levels, elevating, partners, mutual, and potential. Not to use against her, just to document. Because something told me this wasn't ending cleanly. The last straw came that same night. She showed up at my door unannounced. Hair perfect. Expression soft, rehearsed. Can we talk? I didn't open the door fully. She slipped into a tone I hadn't heard from her before. Small, breathy, almost pleading. Look, I know I push you. I know I challenge you. But that's because I believe in you. And I don't want to lose what we have just because you panicked. She reached out to touch my arm. I stepped back. No. She blinked. Slowly, as if recalculating the script. Then her face hardened. Not anger, but offense. You're making a mistake. Someone like me doesn't come around twice. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because of the certainty in her voice. Lena, I said quietly, you don't know me. Her eyes narrowed. And then she whispered the line that sealed everything. I know enough. You're sweet, but not my level. And you'll regret walking away. I didn't answer. I just closed the door. Slowly. Silently. 2 hours later, she updated her relationship status to single and posted a story with the caption, Mutual decision red heart growth is painful but necessary. Mutual. Sure. Except the real fallout hadn't even started yet. And the part she still didn't know? I hadn't even touched the $15 million yet. But very soon, she would find out exactly who she'd been talking down to. And it wouldn't be loud. It wouldn't be dramatic. Just factual. Documented. Cold. And irreversible. Final update. People on Reddit always say the same thing after a breakup story. Move on. Don't look back. I tried. But the universe, or maybe Lena's ego, wasn't done with me yet. Because the ending didn't happen when I closed the door. It happened weeks later, when the story she was telling finally collided with the truth she never bothered to check. 2 weeks after the breakup, I started hearing things. Not directly. Through coworkers, acquaintances, a friend of a friend who happened to know one of Lena's brunch circle. The narrative she'd built was tidy. It was mutual. We wanted different things. He wasn't ambitious enough. I outgrew him. I need someone on my level. Not cruel, not defamatory, but dismissive. Curated to paint her as the benevolent partner who tried her best with the man still figuring himself out. Apparently, she'd even said, he's sweet, but he's just stable. Too stable. No fire. Funny, coming from someone who tried to join my lease behind my back. I let it be. I had work, I had new routines, and honestly, I didn't want to spend my time relitigating a relationship that had lasted barely 2 months. But then something happened that I couldn't ignore. My company hosted a small private event. Invite only, mostly leadership, some engineers, a few notable ex-founders whose products the company had acquired. My name made that latter list now, though almost no one internally knew the details. I went because my manager asked me to. Show face. Network. Be visible. I was standing near the bar area when I heard a too familiar voice behind me. Lena. I swear my stomach dropped to the floor. She wasn't invited. She'd come as a +1 of a friend who freelanced for one of our marketing partners. She didn't see me at first, but she absolutely saw the CEO walking up to greet me. A warm, familiar handshake and a, "How's Seattle treating you, superstar?" I watched Lena freeze across the room. Her eyes locked on me, squinted slightly, then widened. I could almost see the math happening in her head. After a minute, she broke away from her group and walked over, wearing a smile that flickered like a bad light bulb. Lena, hey wow. I didn't know you'd be here. She said it like I'd snuck in, not like I was one of the names on the printed program by the door. "Hi," I said calmly, enjoying the event. She looked me up and down, not flirty, assessing, rebuilding the hierarchy in her mind, fast. "Lena, so what exactly do you do here? I thought you were, well, more entry level." "Entry level? Right." Before I could answer, the COO walked past, clapped my shoulder, and said, "Glad you made it. Still owe you a drink after that acquisition deal, by the way." Lena's smile froze. She blinked. Twice. "Lena, acquisition deal?" Before I could say anything, the CEO, who'd returned to the group, chimed in. "This guy's the reason we even got that contract. Brilliant work. Changed the entire back-end roadmap." Across from me, Lena's face rearranged itself in real time. A mix of confusion, disbelief, and something that almost looked like nausea. She finally managed. "Lena, I didn't know you were, that senior." I nodded politely. "I told you what I do. You assumed the rest." Her voice dropped. "Lena, is that why you never talked about money?" "No, I didn't talk about money because I don't lead with money." She swallowed. "Lena, so the whole time, you were, comfortable," I said. "Very comfortable." I didn't elaborate. I didn't need to. The check, the equity, the quiet stability she thought was a lack. She opened her mouth, closed it, then tried again. "Lena, it's not like I was using you. I just thought we were building towards something. You tried to add yourself to my lease." Her face flushed. "Lena, that was okay. I shouldn't have done that. But I thought we were serious. You also said dating down was exhausting." Her eyes flickered with recognition. She remembered saying it. She remembered whispering it like a challenge, like a promise I was supposed to chase. "Lena, I didn't mean it like that. You know how I talk. I push people. I wanted you to. To prove you wrong." Silence. Dead, heavy silence. Across the room, someone called my name. A VP. Another handshake. Another nod. Lena watched, not jealous, just stunned. Because the narrative she'd built, the one where she was lifting me up, cracked in half in front of her. When the VP walked away, Lena whispered, "Lena, people told me it was mutual." I told them it was mutual. "It wasn't mutual," I said quietly. "But it was necessary." Her eyes glimmered. Not tears, just the realization of how badly she'd misread the entire relationship. And how little I cared now. "Lena, can we talk? Later? Maybe reset." "No," I said. "There's nothing to reset." I wasn't angry. I wasn't triumphant. I wasn't vindicated. Just done. Really, deeply done. A week later, I heard, again through the Seattle grapevine, that Lena had updated her version of events. Not an apology, not accountability, but a new narrative. It wasn't mutual, actually. He blindsided me. He changed. He wasn't who I thought. He misled me. She omitted the part where she pre-wrote my identity before I even opened my mouth. She omitted the lease forms, the account access, the comments, the hierarchy. She omitted everything that made the ending inevitable. And honestly, I let her. I'm not interested in correcting her story. My life moved forward. She stayed where she was, rewriting the script, hoping one draft would finally make sense. That you'd think the money played a part in my healing, but it didn't. If anything, it complicated it. Because I learned something I wish I hadn't. When you hide your success, people underestimate you. When you show your success, people overestimate themselves in relation to you. The real loss wasn't Lena. It was the part of me that believed dating could be simple if I just stayed modest and kind. I lost that illusion. And I'm rebuilding something else in its place. Boundaries, discernment, self-respect. Not walls. Just doors with locks and the expectation that people will knock before entering. This is the part one haven't told anyone. After that company event, I sat in my apartment, lights off, city buzzing outside, and I finally opened the investment account tied to the acquisition payment. The number was still there, untouched, uncomplicated, but it felt less like a windfall and more like a responsibility. Because now I understood why I kept it quiet. I didn't want to be chosen because of it, but I also didn't want to be dismissed because of the assumptions people make when they don't see it. Lena taught me the second part, without meaning to, without knowing, without ever realizing what. Exactly, she lost that day. The truth is heavy, not triumphant, not cinematic, just heavy, but it's mine, and I'm finally learning how to carry it. Lena still tells people it was mutual. I don't correct her. I don't need to. Some stories collapse under their own weight without your help. And some endings, the quiet ones, the ones without shouting or revenge, are the ones that actually change you. This one did, and I'm still becoming the person who'll come after it.